Welcome to the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project series, Ask an Elder.
All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Ask an Elder. My name is Anaya Carrington. I'm a current junior at Dickinson College. When I first received the call of who I would be interviewing, I could not tell you how ecstatic I was and how much I look forward to this moment right here. Today is my great honor and pleasure to speak with Miss Sharon Farmer today, who is the first African American woman to be hired as a White House photographer and the first African American, as well as the first female, to be director of the White House Photography Office. It is hard to talk about photographers of color and her name not immediately being mentioned. She is many things, and also among them, my soror of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta. I extend a warm welcome to you, soror Farmer, and thank you so much for making the time to speak with me today for Ask an Elder. Thank you so much.
Thank you for asking.
All right, so the first question I had for you was, I noticed that in your past interviews, you have always credited your parents with teaching you the importance of being involved in your community, and also the importance of speaking up and out for all of those who cannot. Your mother and your father were principals, and your mother specifically, she was the first Black principal in PG County. There is so much of this story that resonates with me personally. Can you talk about their influences and how you carried that into Ohio State and your early activism on campus?
For real, my parents were very engaged with their friends, with church, and with their school systems. They worked in Prince George's County. She became a principal first when I was still in the 6th grade. By the time I got to the 8th grade, Dad became an assistant principal out in Prince George's County too. I hated the idea that now we had 2 principals. But as my brother said one day, it could be worse. They could have been ministers. And I said, ooh, you got a point. So after that, I didn't complain no more. But I knew I had to bring home good grades because in elementary school, I was a comic book fiend. I loved Batman and Superman and the bizarro world of DC Comics. And then I discovered the Marvel comics as years went on, which were much more engaged, much more proactive about evil people, and everything wasn't glossy. If I didn't get good grades, my father would say, what's this C? I'm like, well, it's a C. That's not acceptable. And I'm looking at him going, what's the problem? Everything else is an A. He said, you got a C. Oh my Lord. He took my comic books and wrapped them up with masking tape and told me I'd get them back when I got all A's the next time. Oh, so I said to myself, well, So I did get all A's the next time. That made me just work triple hard. My father was a phys ed teacher at Fairmont Heights High School in Prince George's County when we were growing up. And my mother taught at C. Pleasant Elementary, where she eventually became the principal at. But no, she started out in North Brentwood, Maryland, right outside the DC line. And one thing does lead to another, even for them, as they have to go to meetings, deal with their peers, and whatever went on with them, they talked about it at the dinner table every night, not once a week, not twice a week, every night. We ate together as a family. And if there was a vegetable I didn't like, I had to eat it anyway. And I'd be trying to put it off to the side of my napkin and like, I hate Brussels sprouts, okay? I don't like cauliflower. We cooked the food until it was dead, including the vegetables, okay? And they took on a whole nother texture, whole nother taste. And if I bit something that was raw, I'm like, I like raw. And my grandmother's fixing the food going, no, we gotta cook it. Well, okay, grandma. She made great desserts and soups. My grandmother took care of the house when my parents were away. And our school was up the street, the elementary school. So we could walk back and forth. It's only a block up the street. So I go home for lunch. I enjoy lunch with grandma. And my brother would come home too. We were both home. So as time goes on and everybody gets busier and busier, we still going to church. We still going to whatever they like to do. And they began to excel in their parts of Prince George's County in education. One when it's time for me to go to college, and I'm also a music major too by then, because when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, my mother said, "Hey, you want to learn how to play piano?" Sure. So they got a piano and got me a teacher. Me and my brother were doing it. I played piano throughout elementary, junior high, high school, still play today. And I have a music room in the house. I don't have we don't have a dining room. We have a music room. And it's got instruments ready to pick up and go. What can I do? I want to jam like Funkadelic, or I
Yeah.
love jazz. And it's fun trying to play along with the CDs and the albums because it engages your mind. And if you engage your mind, music does all kind of things that give inspiration. And I stay inspired every day because every time I hear somebody who I know is better than me, I'm just like, keep practicing. Practice is important. So by the time I got to junior high school, I was playing clarinet in the orchestra, and the teacher, the woman who ran the music program says, "You want to learn another instrument?" Sure. So how about trying this? And it was a French horn, but I couldn't make the embouchure to play it. I kept trying, kept trying. It was not happening. And then she says, "What about this?" And it's a bassoon. And I could play the double reed. So I was like, "Oh, I like this." So I'm playing clarinet and bassoon in junior high. And my mother is also making sure that you play bassoon today? Yeah. So I'm up in the room practicing in my bedroom. And by the time I got to high school, they were giving me private music lessons with piano up at Howard University and bassoon with a guy who was in the US Navy band. And that just made me excel. And then I joined the DC Youth Symphony Orchestra. And that was big, huge way to work, you know. And then I'd go, "Oh, this is great." And so they dragged me up to Coolidge High School the first 2 times. The third time, my mother and father said to me on a Saturday morning, "You know, you should probably catch the bus today." Huh? And they're like, "Yeah, catch the bus. You can carry that with you." Huh? So, and my father says, "You know, I bet you don't really know the bus system except how to get downtown and buy your little 45s." I'm like, "Well, what's wrong with that?" And he's like, "But you don't know how to get from way up there to way back home." So next thing I know, every Saturday, I'm riding the bus, which also means I gotta leave 2 hours ahead of whatever I did before, which means even get up even earlier. But as I recognize my father, no matter what day of the week, he got up 5:30 every day. And he always said time was precious. And as I got older, so the music and the camaraderie of an orchestra was wonderful. And I didn't hang out with knuckleheads. And my father taught me how to fight at a very early age because people would pick on you. And if you go after the biggest, baddest one bothering you and you make them ashamed of themselves, everybody else leaves you the hell alone, which I thought was really great. So I'm very athletic during high school and junior high. Comes time to pick going off to college, and I applied to most of the schools around the DC area. And they say to me, "What about the ones out of town?" Well, I had applied to a few out of town too, and they accepted me. But I'm like, "I don't want to go away." And they're like, "Oh, no, no, no. You pick one from out of town." "No, I'm picking one in DC." "No, no, no. You're not listening. You are leaving." "I do not want to leave." And they're like, "Sharon, if you don't like it after a year, you can come back." "Oh, okay. Well, that'll work. Because I know I'm not going to like it." Well, yeah, I did like it. And Ohio State had less than 380 Black students out on campus out of 40,000. So I knew I was going to be a drop in the bucket. But the Black community on campus was strong. We all spoke to each other, be you a athlete or a student or a scholar. We knew it was just us. And we congregated together in the student union when we had lunch breaks. We'd all see each other. You had a Black corner in the student union where we're all eating together. And I thought that was pretty cool. I had white roommates in Morrill Tower, which was all freshmen got sent to, or Lincoln Tower, Morrill or Lincoln. But I was in Morrill, and I made some good friends there. And music was still my passion. I was still playing bassoon and the clarinet. And whenever I saw a piano in the music school nobody was using, I sit there and play it. So as time goes on, we begin to have difficulties on campus because we have a jitney bus that runs around campus. and it takes you from place to place so you can get your classes on time. And you had to show your student ID, but the white students didn't. And that wasn't right, wasn't fair, and we knew it. So one day, Michael White, who was president of Afro Am, had a strike, and they had to sit in because I was in class, and they stopped the jitney from running when they got to Lincoln Tower, which was right beside Morrill. Um, that started our We Are Black movement on campus, and one thing does lead to another. And we were united in the fact that we recognized that in spite of the fact of how many students' parents paid their state taxes for education, they weren't getting the same amount of scholarships, even percentage-wise, as compared to the majority population at Ohio State. And thank heavens there was an assistant dean of Black students at Ohio State named Charles Williams from Cleveland, but he let us call him Chuck. And Chuck was cool. So he ended up mentoring. You had to have a university teacher or advisor in order to be recognized as a legit organization on campus. Otherwise, you can't get any of the student funds that people's tax dollars have already paid for. So we grew strength, and we started a Black student newspaper. And the Black student newspaper was Our Choking Times. When the paper first started, I wasn't a member because I had gotten bit by the photography bug. Had slowly but surely, I realized as much as I love music, photography was another world. Plus, I wasn't sitting alone in a practice room, getting my scales together, getting my passages together. And another reason I left music at Ohio State was because there was openings for the Ohio State Marching Band, and they're terrific. So for the women, maybe by the end of it, 10 of us decided we wanted to march in the band. And my clarinet skills were still up to par. And we get told by the School of Music, oh, no, just men, excuse us. So I don't see a need to not reach my goals. Some of the other women in the school felt the same way. And I went to the darkroom one day with one of my wonderful friends, and he was taking a photojournalism class, and he was also a football player, working for Woody Hayes. And Mallory let Woody know that his books came first and not football. Next thing I know, Mallory's riding the bench. But because I had gone to the darkroom with him at the school, I saw how pictures were made. I got fascinated. But I had so many music classes, I couldn't take one photography class that year or even part of the next. But when one class was open to me called The Science of Photography by Dr. Harry Benow, I knew I had found my calling. So I understood things I didn't understand before. And I'm still playing music because music is a good way to relax. And I'm not a big TV watcher. Plus, it's about being in school. I also pledged Delta Sigma Theta. And by the spring of 1970, at last we crossed the burning sands, at last. And had a lot of good friends that are still lifelong friends. When they say the Pledge Delta is a lifelong commitment, no stuff, sure enough. And all those folk you meet in undergrad years, they stick with you. Your chapter has reunions. My Epsilon chapter at Ohio State just had its 100th birthday celebration of Epsilon. And more than 300 Deltas came who had been through Epsilon. Even some AKAs came because we were all great friends on campus. We were not rivalry nasty to each other those years I was in school. It took me 5 years to graduate from Ohio State because I had quit the major of music. If I'd stayed one more year, I'd have had 2 degrees, one in music and one in photography. But my father said, oh, when are you gonna graduate? Oh, I'm working on it. Give me a date, give me a time. I said, winter quarter, 74. He says, you stick to that. What I didn't know was that my activism on campus had given attention to me, courtesy of our campus police, courtesy of the FBI, courtesy of students who were the snitches to the authorities about who was doing what on campus. And my little Black student newspaper, Our Choking Times, We got a lot of stuff put out that the major papers weren't talking about. They didn't care about, the formula that Nestle was making was killing the babies over in Africa as they mixed the formula for feeding. So we wrote about all that stuff. We
And
became
it's
friends with,
crazy.
huh?
It's crazy to me because I know our Black Student Union at my college and the way that the Black students and the brown students, they work together.
Yeah.
And we really try to form this brotherhood and sisterhood between all of us because just like back then, it's still like that now. There is not that many, there are not that many Black and brown students on campus. And so we try to really look out for each other and be there for each other. So that's what I like about what you said, especially with the newspaper and even like the sororities. Like you guys had each other. You guys were in different sororities, but at the end of the day, you guys were all sisters, and you were coming together to work towards a common goal. So I really love that.
And we're all friends. And we tell each other, do not drink the omega oil because they got grain alcohol in it when we go to parties. No, we ain't drinking that. um, it was really a tight hood. That's why it's always fun to go back to alumni reunions, especially the Black ones, because we pick right up where we left off at. And that's a beautiful thing. Because if you figure, God, I graduated December of 74. Look how many years that goes by. And we still embrace each other just like it was yesterday. Because once you're tight, you can stay tight. And then Facebook, on some level, has made us easier to stay in touch because I don't friend nobody I don't know. If you didn't go to school with me, you didn't work with me, we didn't do a project together, I don't care how many people you know I know. I do not care because this whole machine computer thing can take up more time and stop you from getting your real work done that's not done. And it's like being on the party line. Well, be clear about who you're partying with. And things that are said and done will follow you. The other thing is if some face ever pops up on Facebook telling me be my friend with some name that may be familiar to me, I'm like, hell to the no. And I just delete. It ain't happening. Because now I've also learned through the years since this computer thing got bigger and bigger and stupider, bigger, you got shysters out there. And the more information they get about you, the more you have the risk of being compromised. And I don't like that, having been in government. So as years and time goes on, when I graduate from Ohio State, the folks are asking me to come work at a TV station, but they want me to do video. It's a big difference between still pictures and movie stuff. And I got a D in that stuff, that cinematography thing. Ain't wasn't my thing. Got A's in still photography though. So I also got an internship the last year I was at Ohio State with the Associated Press. And I felt like I found my calling. Because photojournalism, every day is different. And everything you end up covering is different. But I had the unfortunate chance, and then now I look back, it was really fortunate that the boss of the photo office was a one-man show. And he did not like the idea that the big people in New York City told him he had to work with me. So he gave me assignments like to go shoot some damn statues around the State House or something that was just like ridiculous. I said to myself, he doesn't want me here. So I went to the editors who were over top of his stuff. And the editors told me, look at here, you use the darkroom, you use the gear, but you don't have to deal with him. You come get your assignments from us, and you don't turn your assignments into him. You turn your assignments into us. So that cut that guy out of being able to mess with me. But the good thing was because of my Black comrades at Ohio State, and even the community of Columbus was engaged with us because when we shut the campus down after Kent State, they sent us home for 9 days. And we still stayed in touch with each other because what's next? Because they thought they were going to take the steam out of the engines, but the Black students weren't the only ones mad. The white students were too. Yeah. So we were all united that the campus administration was not cool, lied a lot, didn't tell the truth. And they kept their own nests really feathered. And students were denied some opportunities they should have got. Being able to do the work study program is important for a lot of families. And we couldn't get work study like the other students could. So rather than getting mad about it, we started protesting about it. And then when the white folk decided that the School of Education, that they understood the Black education, we said no. And it was only one Black guy over there teaching in education. And it was also a Black Studies program that was starting up. And the campus, we erupted because, you're treating us different than you treat everybody else. And if you don't let people know that ain't working for you, they go on like la-di-da.
And
So
that's where
we
I have a
demonstrated.
question. How
Mhm.
are you able to kind of look for inspiration and motivation within your field of photojournalism when there is all this mistreatment? And do you really even have public figures or representation of Black photography, of Black women doing photography? So how
Oh.
who did you look up to?
I looked up to history. I read a lot of historical books, and those books would talk about what was going on the slave plantations, the indentured servitude that even white Irish people had to deal with. And then you begin to realize it's just not you that's got a problem with what's going on. A lot of people do. You begin to notice that money is set up, how people make money, what they get to do to make money. If you're not part of a certain ruling class, you're to be denied in spite of your talent. And I'm hanging out with the right people who always pushing, saying, Farmer, you can do better. Farmer, do this. Farmer, do that. You've been studying? What do you eat? You got to eat more than hot dogs and beans, Farmer. To me, that was fast. Okay, just eat that and keep moving. But some older Deltas, C Dub, and P Dub, Patty Wilson Howard and Carolyn Washington Thompson now, were roommates when they graduated from Ohio State, and they got an apartment together. And both of them were in grad school at Ohio State, getting their masters. Farmer, come over here and study. And I had a car, so I drive over there and study. Oh yeah, we made you dinner too. I said, what's this? Salad. I don't want no salad. They said, no, you gotta eat salad. So I learned to eat better, and they made sure that I was gonna stay on the straight and narrow. And people watched out for each other. And that's important because if you're not going to read your history, somebody's got to be able to tell you what you don't have to put up with. Historical stuff I read told me what I didn't have to put up with. It mattered to me. Reading was my favorite passion, that and playing music, because reading took me away someplace else through somebody else's words and experiences that were good. When I was in junior high school, I found a series of books that talked about the Civil War, and they were mainly fiction. That fiction in the Civil War stuff made me go look at real historical novels, real historical books written by historians about the Civil War, and then the place of race within what made the Civil War happen. And then you begin to realize that we're a commodity just like a bale of cotton. And the more I read about slavery and how people are mistreated, families are separated, um, I get mad. But my way of paying people back who don't do it right is to be the best person I can be. I did not use slang language. I talked like I knew what I was talking about because I did. And if you talk slowly and take your time and don't let your thoughts get jumbled, you can get your point across. I decided a long time ago, the only thing people really remember when you talk to them are three things. So I always made my 3 points, and I'd reiterate my 3 points. I would not go to 4, 5, or 6, because if you can't deal with the first three, you're not going to deal with my 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or 20. So when you realize that by the time we're getting short attention spans about, and everybody rather hear themselves talk than hear you talk. And they don't want to respond to your direct question. They talk about everything around your question, but they don't answer your question. And they talk all this stuff. I'm like, now what about my 3 points? Did you understand my 3 questions? And they go, can you remind me what they are? Oh, sure. And I do it again to them. Patience is everything. Before I left campus, we had a Black student, what do you call it? Black student center. We turned the old Bradford Commons into the cultural center for the Black students. And it grew and it got better. I even went back to do a photo show in the 80s. That was fun. But to be back at Ohio State, is a joy because it made me, them and my parents and my friends at Ohio State. They made me the person that I am today. Um, the community of Columbus, Ohio, has everything to do with my success too. There was a wonderful photographer named Valentine who was known as the biggest, baddest photographer, but he was community. He helped people. He made money, but he helped people. He loved what he was doing. I started working for the Call and Post, and that let my photography grow too. The stuff that goes on at the School of Photography, well, that's okay. And also during that time, I'm flipping hamburgers in the student union to make money, to make sure things were cool. And I began to realize I can make money taking pictures. And some of the students on campus say, "Hey, Sharon, look at here, take my picture. And how much it gonna cost?" And I say, $10, Well, every time I saw that student after that, I had the pictures, but they ain't got the money. I learned how to get $5 down, because once you put some money in it, because I put my time and energy in it, you will come back. May take you a while, but you will be back. And that was good to see happening too. So
sorry.
that's okay. That's how stuff got started.
I really
And
want to focus on community. I know that my mom also has really been instrumental in making sure that I'm involved in community as well. She has this African dance and drum organization, and it focuses on teaching kids about their culture and where they come from. And it also invites people to explore their culture with music and dance. So I
good.
definitely relate heavily to having music being in my life to heal people, but also be a way to use your voice in order to speak out. And I wonder if photography and music do the same thing for you, or do they do different things? Like, are they both the same mechanism in allowing you to use your voice to speak out for the community, or do you emphasize one over the other, or are they kind of at the same level, if that makes sense?
Oh, um, when I was dreaming of what my bassoon playing would turn into, I wanted to be in a concert orchestra. And then as time went on, you get hip to the idea that in order to get into an orchestra in those days, you have to wait for somebody to either die or retire. They were not doing blind calls. And then you discover that the people who get hired know the people in the orchestra that get hired. I mean, you get to the raw facts about how musicians get engaged to be employed on a regular basis and not sweat nothing. And the more I realized how the system worked, it reminded me too much of what was going on at Ohio State that I found negative. So for me, photography is my profession, but music is my passion, because your brain has to work with both. And both of those, they balance each other for me. Photography requires I be with a lot of people, going to and from events or whatever I have to shoot. Music, I can play all by myself and find my meditation time doing that. Because by doing music, I could be at peace with me, soulless. It was my meditation. And I still had my sheet music from elementary, junior high, and high school. So I could read the sheet music, play it, be, yeah. I wish I had discovered jazz sooner. I didn't discover jazz like I wish I had until, I'll say 20 years ago now. There's a wonderful church here called Westminster, and they do Friday night jazz and they do Monday night blues. So I go because it's live and you meet the people. When my mom got sick and was going to pass away on us, and my dad had already left us, I picked my mother up every Friday and we go off to jazz. And the blues hadn't started up then, but the 6 or 7 years I got to take my mother to jazz every Friday was a joyful way for her to remember her past, because they grew up on all kind of music and they love jazz. My parents got some albums they would play, and I'm like, wow, this is cool. So yes, I have all my parents' albums along with my albums, but I'm really a jazz exaficionado now, and I also love funk. I'm a big funketeer. when George Clinton and them came out with "Free Your Mind and you what will follow," I was like, "Dang, this is bad." Then one of the guys at school turned me on to Herbie Hancock, and Maiden Voyage had just come out. In those days, albums were $2.99, $2.99. That's right. And I became a huge fan of jazz. So I like to play that because I could study by jazz. Late at night, I could stay up. Other people are popping pills to stay up. No way. I like coffee and I like jazz because when jazz is going on and you're studying, something sets in for me that was good for me. So I did well in all my classes for tests and everything. And I'm one of those people, I don't wait till the last minute to study. I've been studying. Every night has to be devoted to something. And because of all the activities in the day and in the early evenings, what am I going to study? I study when it's quiet. So it was really cool, you know. And when I lived by myself in an apartment, I played the music as loud as I wanted to. So I fell in love with all the stuff I could listen to. Um, each one holds me up.
I love that. I think that explains exactly my passion for dancing and exactly how I feel. It's like like when you work out, you get endorphins and your body just feels great. And it's what I need. Like I cannot live without it. I have to dance. I have to listen to music. But I want to talk about your photography career, especially your work at the White House and with the Clintons as well. Are there any other organizations, people, or movements that stand out in your photography career?
Oh yeah, there's a oldest black camera club in the United States called Photograph. Um, they're still functioning. They're here. They're out of DC. They were at the old 12th Street YMCA on 12th Street, which is now the Thurgood Marshall Center. My parents met there in the 40s because he was in the Navy and she was one of the hostesses along with her sisters for the guys that got off the ship. So there's a shot of my mother and my dad and my aunt all together having a good time. My dad told me the story that when he met my mother, he said, I thought I met the one. My dad's from West Virginia, and his father was killed during a coal mining revolt against the people who owned the coal mining. And my father went off to the Navy to get away from the idea of even being a coal miner or being subjugated to other stuff. But the Navy also had its way of dealing with people that wasn't cool either. So he told me the story. Some people's parents don't tell them what has happened to them, racism wise. But my father and mother both told me their incidences of things happening. Um, my mother went to Bowie State College, and in those days there was no master's program, so she had to go to New York City University, New York University, to get her master's. Thelma Daley, one of our former past presidents, was also attending school there to get her master's. She and my mom got to be great friends. So there are old pictures of my mom and Aunt Thelma helping each other get married. Okay, so
That's crazy. Oh, I
oh,
want to see this picture.
it is really cool. I mean, back in those days, those folk dressed to the nines. They dressed up for every occasion.
Yep, yep.
And sometimes as I got older, I was in high school, and my mom and dad are about to go out to a Kappa function or a Q function or a Delta function. They're dressed, Texas on. My mother made all our clothes. You could always tell the four farmers because we all had the same patterns in the material, even though all the shirts were different. You could tell the four farmers. And I take pictures. You know, when I got back from college, my father and mother talked me into moving back home the first time I came back. And they said, save your money, buy a house. Oh, okay, that sounds good. Your bedroom awaits you. Okay. So I moved home. And for about 2 years, it was cool. And then one night, I don't come home to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And I ain't done nothing but go out, hang out with some friends. And we went to a dance. My father's like, Why are you just getting home? I'm like, I finally left the party and I had to drop off a couple of people. As long as you live in my house. Oh, hell, oh boy, we in trouble now. And then I said to myself, Sharon, you're supposed to find an apartment by now. You need to do something, get out of here. Because you're not going to like what they say next. And my mother didn't say anything about all that, except I told my father or my mother they wanted to go to church. I said, okay, I'll see y'all when you get home. Aren't you going to go to church with us? No, I'm not going to go to church with y'all. Because by now I've read a few books on everything. And I don't think church is where my heart lies. And some people at that church, they're nice. Everybody's nice, but I'm young. My mind is on other things. So the good thing about church was when I was younger, I sang with the youth choir and met some wonderful musicians, Robert and Richard Gill. And then I'm singing in the youth choir, and Sam Bonds has formed a group called the Walton Singers. And he asked me to come sing second alto. I'm the youngest member of the group forever until I went off to college. And at first my parents said, no, they travel. I said, only travel locally. And then Sam and his girlfriend then, now his wife, told my parents, don't worry about her. She's going to be fine. We're going to bring her home. You just get her to the church and we're about to leave and we're fine with that. And that's what happened for many years. So that made me also embrace music even more. I'm still friends with all these folk. I love them like they're my older parents. They're all older than me. So I treat them like the reverence I think they deserve because they also showed me the good side of being able to be employed in music. And once we could get people doing standing ovations for us, I mean, we're in long velvet gowns, the men are in tuxedos, and we're a group of about 35 people. And I'm still the youngest. It was terrific. And a lot of the singers went to Howard University School of Music. They could sing. For one concert, Jesse Norman was our guest vocalist. And we tore the house down because of Jesse. And as she goes on to more acclaim and fortune, and you hear her voice, you're like, man, we got a chance to sing with her. This is deep. So I love all kinds of music, no matter what it is. My mother used to drag me to the latest Broadway show that was in DC. So I began to appreciate the fact that you have people who act and people who play the music. I'm more inclined for the people who play the music. So the photography thing, we always took pictures when I was growing up. My mother did. She had a camera. And when I went off to college, they told me to write, do not call, write, and send pictures. So they give me this little Kodak Insta something. And I'm like, okay. Well, I get to Ohio State. I'm calling twice a week. I call on Fridays, and I call on Mondays. And they couldn't get me to stop doing that. I need to hear my parents' voice. I ain't writing. So,
Yeah.
And they were encouraging. So that photo class I took made me want to get a camera. Plus, I had also started trying to do some work for Art Choking Times. I asked them to send me enough money to buy a knicker mat, and they did. They didn't ask no questions. They sent me the money. I went down to the camera store, got the camera and lens. Next thing I know, I have another career. So when you recognize, your parents recognize, and they don't deny you what your wishes and dreams are, I was allowed to explore everything I thought I wanted to do. Even football, till my father said one day, look at here, how old are you now? I said 11. He said, football's over. What? I'm a star quarterback for the community team. What you talking about? And my father's like, you're not listening. Football is over. If you want to play tag football, you want to play touch football, flag football, fine. No more tackle football. What? So music, they made sure after that, I stayed busy. You practice today? No. Come on up here and practice. So I go up and practice. Photography, her, and then my uncle, which I found out while I was in college, he had been a photographer at Hampton University. That's how he made his money. And to be a student on campus. And he'd get my mother and her sister to send him money. And then he told her one day, if you guys will just buy me a camera, I won't have to ask you to loan me some money. So they did. So I found all of his old pictures and negatives at my grandmother's house. And I took them home and started printing them in the darkroom I had set up at my parents' house. This is after I graduated from college. And those 2 years I spent. And even after I moved out of the house to an apartment,
Mm.
um, the darkroom was still at their house.
Wow.
When I meet my wonderful friend, my partner, we turned the pantry and the kitchen into my darkroom.
Yes, I love it.
It was cool, and it was light tight. And I set up a studio in one of the rooms, and I'm taking pictures, and I have a portfolio because I want to work for a newspaper. I want to work still in photojournalism, but they weren't exactly hiring Black people without giving them a whole lot of leaps and bounds to meet that nobody else had to meet. I ain't like that. But my portfolio for my Associated Press days, the things that I shot at Ohio State were strong. When
Wow.
you have strong work, don't matter the color or nothing.
Mhm.
It's like, does that picture talk to you? And if
Yeah.
it's a good picture, the photograph still is worth 1,000 words. And that's the beauty of photography for me. The other deal is that when you have a strong portfolio, it does you no good not to show it off because then people don't know what you do. Yes, if you have an instrument in your hand, yeah, okay, they know what you do. You have a camera in your hand, well, maybe you take pictures for fun, but they don't know you're looking for a career doing this kind of stuff. So, uh, a friend of mine got ill and could not continue to work for the Washington Post in the weekly section. And she's freelancing. And she told the editor of that section of the paper, call me. And they did call me. And one thing leads to another. I'm starting out with one assignment or two assignments a week. By then, I'm maybe 26 years old, 27 years old. And if you keep moving forward, and no matter how many times you get denied, don't matter. I also want to make some money as a photographer. So I started doing baby photography around the area, newborn stuff, because it paid. But the worst part about it was it sent me from one zip code to another. They could not manage to get all the sittings to be done in one area at one time. So at some point, you get tired of running around like that because that's not taking care of the need in the business. You spend more time on the road than you do taking pictures. So I quit that job and went to work in a camera store. And you get to see your clients, your people's work, the customers that come in. They made me the photo finishing consultant because no matter how mad somebody was, I could explain to them very calmly what they could have done to make a better picture. And I went on to become an assistant manager at another store and eventually the manager. And then he sent me back to the original store I started out with.
Mm.
And I had the smallest store in the chain of 13 stores, but my store always had the highest volume, the highest revenue in photo finishing because we're efficient, we're friendly. We try to teach you something as you're taking your pictures. So when you got your pictures back, I'm like, well, how do they look? What's going on? What's your favorite picture? Because I know I'm gonna learn something just talking to them. And that's what happened. So the guy who was the HUD photographer, housing and urban development, his building is right next door to L'Enfant Plaza. And at the time, Patricia Roberts Harris, our soror, was the secretary of the of HUD. And he would come in, show me his pictures, and show me what he had done. I'm like, this is really cool. Then his assistant started coming in, David Valdez. And a couple of roles that David had, he had lightning bolts going across the film. And he's having a fit. What did you all do to my film? Why is it not coming out? And I said, if you will notice, those lightning bolts not only go through the frame, but they go through the whole film, be it an image there or not. That's static electricity. Back in those days, we wound the film back. If you wind too fast, you are making electrical energy in there. And that's why you can see lightning bolts in his work. And he was like, I don't believe you. His boss came over the next day to apologize to me, saying, you're absolutely right. I don't know what's wrong with David, but yes, you're absolutely right. David goes on to be the president for the first Bush, Bush Sr., and he's in the White House. But I recognize him as I see that the changing of the guy. I'm like, that's the guy I had to tell with lightning bolts going through his stuff, right? Also, one of my customers was Sweet Honey in the Rock founder, Bernice Johnson Reagan. and that group, Sweet Honey in the Rock, was wonderful. But I didn't know their music. I just knew of them. And Bernice would come down. She's always friendly, but she's about her business of getting back upstairs because Smithsonian had a branch of at L'Enfant Plaza of their offices. And one of my other friends, Joe Strouder, and I are hanging out. She's one of my customers too, bringing her film in. She said, Sharon, Sweet Honey and Rock's looking for a photographer. You should go apply. Yeah, right. Apply for what again? They need somebody to do their next album cover. Oh, you got a great portfolio. You should show them. Joe had to drive me over there because I was not going to go. Okay. You got your portfolio? Yeah. Let me see it. Where is it? It's right here. Open it up. Is it there? Yeah. Okay, now we go. And we go to this house on 15th Street by the gas station, and all 4 members of Sweet Honey and the Rock are there. And they look at my portfolio and say, wow. And then Bernice says, why aren't you working for yourself? Light bulb goes off. Bernice sent me on a whole nother direction. That album project allowed me to meet a lot of cool people, including their vocal coach, Joy McLean Bosfield, all of Sweet Honey. And our project director was the filmmaker, Michelle Parkerson, who had gone to Temple University. And we're having a good time doing this stuff. We're doing it 3 to 4 days out of the week based on how much studio time could be afforded. So I get to shoot during the sessions, before the sessions, after the sessions. And I do it all as a photojournalist, that style. And that shows better real life. Plus, I decide when to push the shutter. I like the concept of the decisive moment that was popularized by Henri Cartier-Bresson. And the more pictures I looked at, the more I knew my style's got to be my style, because you don't want to copy anybody. We all recognize copies, especially if you're a photojournalist, even a photographer. You know when somebody's copying somebody.
So how would you describe your style?
Photojournalistic with an eyeball.
Mm.
That's how I would describe it. I'm a detail-orientated person because small things make a difference in an image. It's like, if you just take a picture and don't notice the pole coming out the back of somebody's head, that's not a good picture. The pole has to be off to one side or another, not to distract you from the person or people or things you're shooting. So through the years, I learned how to look at all 4 corners of my image before I shoot. So I don't have to crop in the dark room. I've already cropped it when I'm shooting it. And that's always best. Back in those days, roll of film was 36 shots at the max. And I tried to get everything in the 36 shots I thought I should have. And I wouldn't stand in one spot. Whatever I shot and I thought I nailed it, I move around to another angle because light changes when you move, composition changes when you move. And by then, maybe some other action is going on that wasn't going on before. So I try to become a complete 360-degree photographer. Plus, whatever I'm shooting in front, the stage is not the only place things are happening at. You got an audience behind you. You got people doing tech work, trying to make things happen. I paid attention to them like I paid attention to the stuff I was sent to shoot, because that's when real life comes into play, but it's based on what I see. So that became part of my style too. I do very well at the weekly section for the paper, which came out on Thursdays, which always gave me time to get my pictures to them. The photo department started to say, hey, look, you can come do some assignments for us too. So I'm like, Matthew Lewis, the Black photographer, was in charge. And he was a Pulitzer Prize winner from doing the magazine work for the Potomac magazine on Sundays for the Washington Post. So I started doing work for them. And man, am I having a blast. I get to shoot all kind of stuff, which just makes my love for photojournalism even stronger. When the Sweet Honey and the Rock album gets out, I got photo credit everywhere. They also put a magazine that's the same size as the album is of the whole process of the production. So I got pictures all over the inner stuff. And they also had principles that they believed in. And I dug where they were coming from. Bernice was a historian as well as an a cappella musician. And she really sang powerful songs with the group. And they go on to greater fame and acclamation. I'm still running around with them. Then Linda Tillery and her band come to the East Coast from Oakland, and they're doing an East Coast tour up and down the coast. And they're like, hey, we heard about you. You want to go with us? So I go with them for about a week, and I'm shooting pictures of their performances and their crowd stuff. And I'm like, this is too cool. Yeah, I'm gonna stay in photography. But the deal was, because I mainly worked for the Washington Post Monday through Friday, my weekends are pretty much clear. And I was making enough money at the Washington Post as a freelancer, I pretty much wasn't sweating nothing. But I also have a studio set up in my house. So I'm doing people's headshots, or they need shots for their performances or their poetry readings. And I always make sure that I get photo credit on whatever they're publishing. I just say, whatever you do not leave off my photo credit. And that makes other people come to you. So I'm totally a bohemian with a happy life, a good friend I'm living with, and we get stuff done. The art community is very vast, and they all have different things they do. And you learn how to like and live with all of that, because everybody has got their own artistic bent. And that was the wonderful teacher for me too. Not to mention, Bernice always had some words of wisdom about oppression and things that were going on. Read any of her books, get any of their music. There's nothing like it. And they only instruments they have are a shaker ray and maybe one hand drum. But it's just off the chain, because their voices just send you to the next plane, or wherever you thought your brain was at, you're going someplace else. So I've enjoyed them through the years. Bernice retired a few years ago, so the group is a little bit different than it was. But they're singing about our stuff. They're singing about the history of America, the history of our people. And that just reaffirms for me, red, black, and green, you know what I mean. Oh, Roy Ayers. When I was in school at Ohio State, we brought Roy Ayers for Black History Month to perform. And I got to meet him. When he came to DC, he called me. And I'm out of school by then. So yeah, I went to where they were playing that, had a ball. It was great to see him again. That was one of my favorite songs that came out of that era.
So what has really kept you grounded in your authenticity in your work and in your stature? Like you said, you're a bohemian. You take pictures with what you want to do, with how you see things. You
Yeah.
don't adjust to anyone else. You wear your hair how you want to. You wear whatever clothes you want to. I really admire that about you, and you've never changed who you are for anyone else. What keeps you to be authentic?
Your friends and family. You can't live without friends and family. I stay in touch with my good friends. I stay in touch with my family, except for one person who lost their mind. I let them go. You gotta know when to let people go. But other than that, the love is wonderful. Your friends watch out for you. You watch out for your friends. We talk, we get together. Even when I went to the White House and didn't see people, oh my God, I never lost track of my friends. If I got invited to dinner, I'd apologize and say I can't come. I didn't say because I was working for who. I just said, I wish I could come, but I can't be there. I never showed off, because some people do lose their mind when they get certain jobs. I've seen it. And I say to myself, I'm never gonna be like that, because it's rude, and it's ain't all about you. It's about the people around you. And if you focus on you and nobody else, you have already lost your way. I ain't been about that ever, because my parents kept me grounded. They had no problem calling me to task about a lot of stuff. Few things they couldn't get me to change about me. You know, you evolve as a kid, and you evolve even more as an adult. And then when you're over 40, I'm still listening to my parents, but I'm like, you guys have no idea. And if I took you where I hung out at, you'd probably fall out. So you don't bring your parents into things you know they're going to have a hard time with already, because they're churchgoers. They believe in study and education, and their friends are great. my parents kept their friends too. And that made me keep my friends too. Because if you look for the goodness in the people, you're going to find it. If you look for mess, madness, uh, man, if you gossip, you ain't figured nothing out. But if you do your work, it's going to be all right. Great minds discuss great ideas. Small minds gossip. I first heard that from Debbie Peaks. Okay, uh, Peaks was the uh, editor and publishing the Delta Journal in the '80s when I started doing work for Delta. But I started in the '70s, and Peaks wasn't there yet. Somebody else was in charge of communications. So Delta Sigma Theta, I've been shooting since I became a Delta, and then I started shooting national stuff when I graduated in winter of '74. By the summer of '75, Delta needs some help with images. So I started doing their work and met Norlisha Jackson, who is a heck of a writer, organizer. Her table in her house would be laid out with all kind of ideas and articles that had come from around the country from the different chapters. And pictures too. And she said, Farmer, what you think it is? What do you think of that? I said, that's a strong picture there. This was not so strong, but I bet this chapter's never been in a journal. And she'd go look and go, you're right, this chapter's never been in a journal. And good things would happen. When they did Countdown to Cassini with the movie premiere and stuff, I got to meet a lot of great, wonderful folks, not to mention Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, who had produced and made the film. But Delta Sigma Theta itself had gone out and raised the money to make this film. So projects, you begin to understand more again about how things get done. Deltas will meet until the day is dead to make sure they're all on the same path before they break the meeting up. No matter the meeting's only gonna last 2 hours. You ain't got it worked out. It's gonna be 4 hours. And they take a break. But watching how Deltas who were officers and in charge of programs work, not to mention the hardworking staff at headquarters, it was a different era. And each one could teach one, and gladly so, back in those days. All that stuff rubbed off on me. You cannot be denied when you got a Delta soror telling you some stuff. Because if you're gonna believe anybody, after your parents, believe them next, okay? Because the sisterhood is strong. Those principles that we believe in are a lifelong commitment. The scholarships we raise, we're not there just to party. We're there to make a difference in our communities. And I had the privilege and pleasure of that by joining Federal City Chapter at Ohio State. In DC when I got back, I joined them. And then I stayed with them a long time. And she's like, Farmer, you didn't make it to the meeting. And I said to myself, I'm working. The Washington Post has gone from giving me 1 or 2 assignments from the photo office. I'm still doing stuff for the weekly. Now I'm getting 4 to 5 assignments a week to go do stuff. And some of that stuff interferes with the same time my chapter is meeting. And I'm like, I can't do both. So I went to be a member at large because that way I'm still paying dues, still engaged fully. But you couldn't keep me to a time because if there was a photo job, this is the only way I'm making my money. So no, I can't go sit in a meeting. Plus, you can't go to a meeting and not take an assignment. That's one thing for sure. Everybody has to spread out the burden of what work has to get done to make whatever you're doing strong. That's why Delta is still functioning like it does. That's why when we did our 100th birthday, all those Deltas came from everywhere across the country. We have more than 140,000 dues paying members at that time in 2013. And we're making buildings happening for seniors. We get HUD grants to make senior citizen housing. When California did it, the chapter here, the Washington Alumni chapter says, we're gonna do that too. Yes, they have. That building is now more than 50 years old, I think now. And they even built a second building next to it because the society as a whole forgets about its elderly who built everything. And that's the biggest sin, I think, about what doesn't happen in America. Nobody should have to sweat food, healthcare, or where to live. This is just crazy. So Deltas have always kept their nose to the grindstone. and not to mention the scholarships and the programs. Um, the people who are Deltas, the honorary Deltas, the Deltas who crossed them burning sands, that's a large committed group about human welfare.
Yeah.
And we're not racist. We just know that the racists ain't dealing with us and that we have to deal with us. So we deal with us in a very, very positive way.
Yeah.
And that's why we be slapping five, high five, low five. And the elders do that too. I mean, it's just like the generation of what we were. I'm never going to forget that when Mona Bailey was president, they did a march down Pennsylvania Avenue in recognition of the suffragettes. And the Deltas all wore white. Two of the Deltas couldn't walk like the rest of us, so they were riding in an old car from the 20s or 30s, and everybody else marched down the street. What a group, committed group. So to do it again in 2013, hey, I've been to both of them. It was
Yeah,
a
that's
thrill.
so amazing. Like that's very inspirational. Uh, but I wanted to leave with one last question,
Mhm.
and I wanted to know what advice would you give me and other Black young women who are continuously trying to find our space on campus and in the classroom, being mostly the only Black women in the class? What advice would you give to all of us as it appears that you're very comfortable in your skin that you're in? How do you get to that place of comfortability and security?
First, you sit on the front row, whatever class you're in. You get there before the class starts. And you always stay just a little bit. If you got any questions at all, you go ask the teacher. You don't try to figure it out. You don't walk off with your friends. Stay. But do sit on the front row, not the second row, not the third. Don't be sitting in the back. Front row, because that's what you're there for. Two, the company you keep is very important. If all people want to do is drink, get high, and party, you with the wrong people, because you're not going to get your work done. And you're going to slip off and don't even know you're slipping off the edge. So we always try to tell the young ladies, and people would tell me, Sharon, you don't want to go off with them. Oh, well, they're going to da da da. No, Sharon, come on, go with us. And I would go with the ones who were sensible. Um, the company you keep and the spirit you hold is everything. Uh, there's no other way you're going to be a good person. The other thing is, as a group, you got to get together at least once a week for a meal together. Find a time that's good for everybody or for most folk and have a meal together. Not a drinking party, not a get high party. Now we're going to play music and do this, or do you want to see my clothes? No, life is just as serious now as it was when I was in school. And you got worse things assaulting us now because of the way style is, the way the news is not. All this murder, blood, and mayhem in the movies and on television get you off your track. If you desire to go to Hollywood, Hollywood will eat you up. Anybody who's managed to have some level of success damn near got killed before success started coming around the corner. Um, be it the guys or the gals. How people in power treat the rest of us is a big problem. So the only thing you can do is show up in mass. The more people you can get to come with you for a demonstration or a movement or a discussion, you're showing strength in numbers. One by one, they could knock you off. As a group, you could not be knocked off. That's how we did so well at Ohio State, getting a Black Cultural Center and getting our organizations recognized. Bless Chuck Williams, who was our assistant dean of students. He was not only a mentor to my newspaper on campus, but he was also a mentor of about 15 other Black groups on campus, because always there are reluctant professors and other Black administrators who don't want to deal with you, who just want to do their job on campus and then go home. They are not there to make sure about anything with you.
At all.
And the ones that are, those are the ones you show appreciation to. And you make sure whatever you're doing is good, they get invited to. You ask them to set aside some time to come check us out for 15, 20, 30 minutes. And if you can stay the whole time, that'd be great. But communication is still everything. So you have to express that to the people that you admire. And sometimes you may find a wonderful white soul that understands what you're trying to do and how can I help? I stay in touch with those people. They have found me through Facebook through the years. And yeah, I remember Steve Drake. Yeah, I remember you, Monica. Oh my God. Communications with old people keep you grounded too. I'm grounded because of the company I keep and the spirit I hold. But it's about first the company I keep. Because sometimes their spirits can overwhelm yours because you lose track.
Yep.
Once I got my spirit in lockdown, it's about judging the company. And the company wasn't good. I'm out of there. I have been known to walk into a party. I see who's really there. I say, hey, where's the host? Oh, they're in the back getting food ready. I go back there and I say, hey, thank you so much for inviting me, but I'm not gonna stay. You can size up a room when you go in there, you go, but you want to tell the host, thank you. And I keep right on out the kitchen door, out the back around in my car. I ain't offended nobody, but I have made sure I'm not gonna be in that company because I know what it means.
Yeah.
The best thing about all of this is that because the people I still know and hang out with, and because some of the newer people have come into my life, I know what path I'm on. I know what path I'm not getting off of. Just stay true to who you is. And that comes by reading, not hanging out with knuckleheads, and not doing everything commercials suggest you should do. All those commercials are, I call the big scam. They want you to spend your money on junk. And I don't do that. I don't buy junk. I don't buy things that break. I buy tools so I can fix my own doggone stuff. As much as you can, learn the mechanics of what makes plumbing work, how to do carpentry. Women doing stuff and not acting like the last damsel in distress will keep you healthier much longer, keep money in your pocket much longer, and the self-satisfaction of knowing you fixed your own car, that you can actually take off your flat tire and put the new one on all by yourself.
All by myself.
That's the power. The power of what you do is more important than anything. After that, company you keep, spirit you hold.
I really appreciate you and all of your advice that you gave me. And this conversation that we had is really special to me. And so I just want to thank you again for your time and just for being here and talking to me. Thank you so much.
You're absolutely welcome.
This message has been brought to you by the National Black Leadership and Empowerment Project.